Banned again.
AFR programs are now live streaming on the AFA streaming app. Now you can get shows like today's issues straight from the source.
Put back on the next.
Just say unbanned.
Unbanned.
Just search AFA Streaming or visit streaming.afa.net to sign up. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network, Thursday, February the 22nd, 2024. Thanks for listening again to AFR. Joining me in studio here in Tupelo, MS, is Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Tim.
Chris Woodward.
Hello.
And in Kansas City, Kansas, is our good buddy, Dr. Ray Pritchard. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Tim. How you doing today?
Good. Your cell phone working all right?
I just discovered 10 minutes ago it's not working. I got that, everything, Wi-Fi is working fine, but the cell phone isn't. So I get that little SOS up at the top, where the bar should be.
You got AT&T?
No, I guess.
I guess.
Evidently.
Well, that's what I have, and my phone's working semi. But if you don't know, most people probably do, unless their cell phones is where they get the news, and their cell phones haven't been working all morning. There's a big national,
outage
for cell phone coverage for a lot of AT&T and some others, but AT&T, Fred, right?
Primarily AT&T. At one point, 70,000 customers. This all started apparently around 2:30 this morning Central Time. Something happened, and that's the way we have to put it right now, because we're not sure. There's all kinds of speculation out there what may be behind this.
Yeah.
One of the possibilities is a software problem with some phones. But if you have another company, a Verizon or Comcast, Xfinity, whatever the case may be, if you have one of those phones and try to call an AT&T customer, you may not be able to get them. Mm-hmm. And if your husband and wife and you both have AT&T phones, you may not be able to talk to each other. So they're working on this.
That's a problem I've had with my wife, Allison, this morning. We haven't been able to, her phone, I went home to check on her because I'd tell her what's going on because we couldn't get each other. Nobody could get her in our whole family.
Right.
And so what I'd like to do at this point is do a test. I'm going to test her phone. So I'm going to give her number out on the radio.
555-867-5309.
If anybody can get through to her, tell her I'll bring the lunch home.
You're at work.
Right.
Well, it is a big story. Mm-hmm. And again, we don't know why exactly, right? I don't know that have we heard any reports on why this happened exactly?
Not officially.
At first I thought, well, here we go. This is right. I was thinking, here we go. This is China or Russia doing a cyber attack.
Yeah.
And we don't know whether that's true or not, right? I mean,
no.
All we know is it's down. I did notice an article that came out in the last hour where, and this is instructive, an article just about the outage. So it's just a hot article saying a great many of the users whose phones are down are texting or trying to get on the internet. They think the world is coming to an end, which I guess I want to say this is less about Bible prophecy, but it shows how incredibly dependent we are on technology today. We almost can't live without it.
That's it exactly. And it is just a reminder of how dependent we've become on these things. A couple of our guys in the newsroom this morning who have AT&T phones, we have a security system tied to the phone, and they couldn't get on because of that, because their AT&T phone wasn't working. Everything is so interconnected today. Mm-hmm. And we've just, because it's convenient, we have embraced that interconnectedness. But then something like this happens, and we say, wait a minute, this is extremely inconvenient now.
Yeah. Well, it's terrifying to think you could pick up your phone and suddenly it is a strange feeling. I picked up my phone, and once I turned off Wi-Fi, I'm looking down at it right now where the bars are supposed to be. There's little dots, but if I turned off Wi-Fi, the SOS, which means this thing is not working.
You mean your phone? Your phone is working properly with Wi-Fi, but not without. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Right.
people are having different issues in this outage. My wife and I are on the same phone plan. She has AT&T as I do, and I called her this morning from here, and she picked right up. But you can't call me on my phone.
Yeah. Well, if there's a malfunction with the ATMs, I'm hoping that my bank account will be full of money. I don't know where it came from.
Right.
Yes.
And then I will be stuck with the dilemma of, do I report this?
Yeah.
Who do I report?
You start walking around singing showers of blessing. We know what happened.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a big story. Now, and I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't been resolved already.
Yeah. Well,
We're talking about some of the smartest people in the world, and we're looking at, what, 6 hours now, 7 hours, 8 hours, something like that?
2:30 Central this morning. So, yeah, we're talking about 8 hours now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One guy told Fox, or actually Fox pulled his quote from somewhere, but some gentleman is of the opinion that he should, quote, get a stimulus check for this. Another person said, I lost my cell phone service at 5:56 a.m. Eastern. I was in the middle of working when I lost it. Now I can't do anything.
I think we need to go for reparations, guys.
That's right.
I really do. This is our shot right here.
Yes.
Work the angles. Get the money, right?
Yeah.
Go for reparations. All right, so
Here, a little bit
Go
of
ahead.
irony
Yes.
here.
what now?
Yesterday in our neighborhood, there were two young ladies walking around, knocking on doors, trying to get people to switch their cell phone service to AT&T.
Oh,
Well, glad we didn't go into that one.
that's right.
Well, AT&T is maybe, I don't know who has more customers nationally, AT&T or Verizon. They're probably 1, 2. T-Mobile's right there too.
Pretty big, yes.
But it wouldn't be the cell phone towers necessarily, because I think a lot of these companies, they all use the same towers. Many of them do.
But if
I
there's
think I'm right about
if
that.
Right,
there,
I think-
there is a
think you're-
piece of software specific to AT&T,
Right.
that's one speculation that it could be, which may explain why Wi-Fi works, but not if you're depending on 5G
Right.
or whatever that is.
You know what? Hey, remember the old commercial with the guy for Verizon? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I started
prob-
to say that at the
They'll
beginning
probably
of the
bring
show.
him back now, and they'll
Yeah.
say, AT&T,
Yeah.
can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Not yet.
Hey,
Well, that got sold out though, didn't he?
he ended up going to a different, another cell phone provider bought his character,
Yeah, he was
bought the
for
rights
sale.
to it, and that's how he was like a customer that transitioned from one company to the other.
Yeah, he was a Verizon, right? Verizon,
Mhm.
right? And then he went free agent,
Right.
like athletes do.
You know what? Maybe T-Mobile or maybe one of the smaller.
I think it was it Sprint or so. Who did he go with?
Yeah.
I think it was Sprint. I think he went with Sprint. They gave him a a 10-year deal, something like that, and it doesn't matter even if he gets injured, he'll still be paid.
It's a good deal.
Yeah.
Good work if you can get it.
Did you get that joke, Brent? Okay. All right. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. One question I have is, if your cell phone isn't working, how do you report that? That's a mystery of life right there. All right. You look bewildered,
I'm trying to
Chris.
think what
What's
would
the
you
answer
do?
to that question?
Well, because most phone companies, like a desk phone, for those that still have
What's
a
that?
landline, that's AT&T. A lot of them.
we do have a landline here at the office. It's a lot
I've
of
heard of desk
but
phones.
most
Yeah.
people have gotten rid of their land phones at home, right?
Yeah.
You have a land
We
phone?
don't-
Landline?
No, we haven't had one for 20 years. I
Okay,
guess.
there you go.
Yeah.
So we don't either.
We may have to go back to the carrier pigeon.
So I had to go. I drove back home 15 minutes this morning because I couldn't get out. So my wife on the phone. I drove back home, tell her what was going on because nobody could get her, and so on the phone. So then when you do something like that, you don't want to scare somebody, right? So I don't want to get shot walking into my own house because my wife's Annie Oakley.
Right.
I'm more careful.
It would happen after you get all the money from the ATM.
My wife,
ATM too.
she's got all these weapons and stuff, and
sit in the car and blow the horn first?
I've got it.
You don't want to surprise Allison.
No, I told her, you get the whatever you got in there, AR, and I'll get my 7-iron. We'll take them down. Intruders.
Uh-huh.
All right. What's first? Other than the national outage of
Yes.
phones.
Well, I've got a couple of sound bites here from a big event that took place yesterday in Washington, D.C. Members of the House had a sit-down meeting with the brother of Joe Biden. Jim Biden is the name of the brother. And they confronted him about what he knew about his family's business dealings. Specifically, what did he know about Joe Biden's involvement in this? Now, Jim Biden maintains his brother didn't do anything wrong. The family's, everything's great. But they confronted Jim Biden with proof that he lied during his testimony. For example, they showed him some paperwork that involved signatures from the Biden family, and as a result, Republicans are saying he lied during his testimony with them. I've got a couple of different sound bites here. Let's begin with this one. It's Congressman Russell Fry from South Carolina talking about Jim Biden being confronted with proof that he lied during his testimony. Clip 1.
Jim Biden said that he had no involvement and that he was not in an agreement with Rob Walker, Hunter Biden, and James Gilliar. But when presented with a document that he signed with those gentlemen coming together for a business arrangement, he changed his story there and said he wasn't familiar with signing that particular document.
It's funny how everybody always forgets, or they fall back.
Yeah, you know what? I think in the court, who knows if this will ever be taken to a court of law. That is the Biden family, including President Joe Biden, getting money directly from an foreign adversary or somebody that quid pro quo, as they say.
Yeah.
Back when he was vice president, or that's when a lot of this was going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether he's ever or impeached for it, I don't know, but I think the vast majority of people in this country, even if they're going to still vote for Biden, they know that his Hunter Biden, it's no secret, and his Joe Biden's brother, they were killing it around the world.
Yes.
Right?
Ukraine, China.
Especially Hunter Biden. I mean, he was getting paid for, the Ukrainian gas company was paying him for his quote expertise
because
sit
he
on a board
so much about energy production.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things people talk about the Ukraine being corrupt.
Yes.
They have a history of corruption going way back, and that's that's another reason, a side issue why a lot of people have problems giving Ukraine money to fight Russia is because that's a lot of money. We don't know where it goes, whose pockets is it going in, what's it really being used for. A lot of questions having to do with Ukraine. But anyway, back to the main point of that story. This congressman is saying that Jim Biden, Joe Biden's brother, lied.
Yes.
Under oath?
He said, I didn't sign anything, I didn't know anything, we didn't do anything wrong, to which they presented him with the paperwork bearing his own signature showing that he knew something because he wouldn't have signed it had he not been aware of that situation.
Also there was the what do you call it at the White House, the records where people sign in to make visits to people?
The log, the official log, right?
Yes.
The log.
Yeah.
The official log showed, this story was about a year ago, showed that Hunter Biden's business associates made many visits to the White House when Joe Biden was VP.
Yes.
And then Joe Biden says, remember him saying famously or infamously, I never talked to my son about his business interest? Nobody believed that. So why would we believe that he didn't any of this? So, all right, next story, Chris.
Well, let me play this clip real quick, and we'll tie kind of a bow around that particular topic. I also had some audio from Representative Jason Smith. He's a Republican from Missouri, and he says he's not buying Jim Biden's testimony that he was not selling access to Joe, much like Hunter was. Clip 2.
We have numerous WhatsApp messages and emails provided to us by the IRS whistleblowers that show James Biden was intimately involved along Hunter, Tony Bobulinski, Rob Walker, and others in selling access to his brothers to foreigners.
Yeah, and you have testimony, sworn testimony from Bobulinski. And also, what was it, several days ago, one of the sources the FBI had allegedly about who said there was that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden got $5 million each. This goes back to the Burisma deal. But he was arrested the other day. He's now accused of getting bad information from the Russians.
To the FBI, right?
Yes. And people.
Or the FBI arrested him, right?
Well, here's the thing. This came just days before Bobolinsky, Jim Biden, and next week I think it's Hunter Biden goes behind closed doors with the House Oversight and Judiciary Committee. So there are people who are suspect that all of a sudden a source, one of the sources that the Republicans were using, gets arrested and is charged with falsehoods.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next story.
In other news, we've got an interesting situation involving an attorney in Maricopa County, Arizona, and the district attorney of New York City. I'm going to set up the soundbite here because I have one. Maricopa County Attorney Rachel Mitchell says she's not going to extradite a suspected murderer by the name of Rod Al-Mansouri to New York City because Rachel Mitchell, the county attorney there, thinks DA Alvin Bragg is too soft on crime and he's just going to let this suspected murderer of walking. Clip 3.
We will not be agreeing to extradition. We're going to keep him here. These are mandatory prison sentences. And having observed the treatment of violent criminals in the New York area by the Manhattan DA there, Alvin Bragg, I think it's safer to keep him here and keep him in custody so that he cannot be out doing this to individuals either in our state or county or anywhere in the United States.
This is interesting. This is if you didn't, it made national news. It was a couple of weeks ago. There was these illegal immigrants in New York City, 4 or 5 of them. Were they teenagers or they were young?
Young men.
Young men. Mm-hmm. And they attacked some police officers, right? Is this the same story, right? We were telling?
Different story.
Okay, my apologies. Anyway, they some of them fleed. Okay? I'm sorry.
What you're talking about? Yeah, the young men who were attacked the cops. They get arrested, but the court lets them go.
Right, and they get on buses to go to California.
Well, I think they went to Maricopa County, Arizona, and they were arrested there. But this is a different incident. Okay. The suspect in this case has been arrested in Maricopa County, Arizona, in connection with the stabbing of 2 women.
In New York City?
No.
In Arizona. Okay.
He is wanted in New York City on a murder charge.
I gotcha.
All right. So this Maricopa County attorney, Rachel Mitchell, is saying, I'm not giving this guy up to New York because Alvin Bragg, the district attorney in New York, he's got a habit of letting people go.
He does, yeah.
So we want to keep this guy here.
I got you.
We want to address the charges here, the 2, and I think it's attempted murder charges against this guy for stabbing these 2 women. Mm-hmm. We're going to deal with him here, and there'll be lengthy sentences if he's found guilty. And after all of that, then I'll give him up to Alvin Bragg. But I'm not letting him go right now.
Yeah, what happens in New York and Manhattan is the DA is the Alvin Bragg.
Yes.
And he's one of the Soros-funded DAs.
Democrat.
Trump, yeah.
As there are in many big cities, they have DAs that are They were in part, at least, funded by George Soros. And so they were funded so that they would do nothing to harden criminals, basically. It would be a turnstile. In the name of social justice, right?
Yes.
In the name of social justice, we let, like cash bails are discriminatory. So we can't have those. So what we do is we just let people off. They commit some kind of even violent crime, and the next day or that same day, these DAs, like Alvin Bragg, they let them back out on the streets. And that's going on all over the country, especially in some of these liberal big cities. It's insane. Yes, it's insane, and also it's self-destructive. We see what's happened in San Francisco. It got so bad they recalled the voters. The liberal voters in San Francisco said, "We've had enough of this nuttiness. We're going to recall this DA."
Yes,
and they did. And then we see other places. So this one in Arizona said, "No, we're not sending this killer." Basically back to New York to be let go.
That's right.
Or to be mixed, we're going to charge him here first. Good for her.
Yep.
But she would she be considered a peer of Alvin Bragg? So is she a DA type?
She's described as the county attorney
for Maricopa County.
Maricopa County.
But she would be on the same level.
Yeah.
They're both elected. She's a Republican, by the way. And of course Alvin Bragg is a Democrat.
I'll tell you what, if you just look in your local newspaper, then where you live in the country, and you see these crimes that are being committed, the violent crimes, armed robbery, breaking in, assault, all these things. All these people have multiple offenses on their they have a rap sheet.
Yes.
And we're just, even in, that happened in our town. We were looking at the paper last night. Here were these, it doesn't happen much, but we had a gun not too far from where we are here. Teenagers on a Sunday afternoon. Teenagers, they're having they get into a gunfight. One person dies. Well, they had the people they were dealing with. They had a rap sheet. Okay, so Ray, a lot of these criminals aren't ever even punished very long at all.
Well, either they're not even arrested. If they're arrested, they're let go.
Right.
They're given a slap on the wrist. They don't pay any penalty. And that's happening in big cities across America.
Is that
right?
the judge's fault or the DA's fault or both? When this happens, on this,
I got to believe it starts with the DA,
okay,
who refuses to prosecute,
okay,
who says let them go or pleads it down to a nothing offense. We've got soft judges, but we've got people like Alvin Bragg in office, paid for by George Soros.
But don't they do this in the name of social justice?
Yeah.
In other words, we've got too many black young men in prison. We can't have any more, so let them go free no matter what they do. That's what I get from it all.
Yep. That's what it seems to be coming down to. Listen, there almost now is not a week that goes by when we see videos of people already have police records. They're assaulting people. They're going into stores. They're stealing. This is just going on.
They've been emboldened.
Yes. And many in the black community who live in these neighborhoods, they're scared to death.
Yeah.
And they're upset because of liberal district attorneys aren't prosecuting these bad guys. And they're now starting to put pressure. We're seeing this in Chicago. We're seeing it in New York.
Yes. The local citizens, African Americans, they're upset.
Yes.
And because of what this is doing to their communities, and
they feel unsafe.
They live in fear.
Yes.
Right. And there was, in fact, in Oakland, California, you know who's leading the efforts to get more police and to get more enforcement of the laws? The NAACP.
Yeah. Yeah.
The local chapter of the NAACP.
Yeah.
They're saying the lack of policing and the softness on criminals is leading to the destruction of our town.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, all right, let's go ahead and take our break right here. We've got a lot more coming up. We don't have any guests today, right?
No, we do.
Yes, we do. Okay, I'm going to set this up real quickly. Maybe you read about this case in Indiana where a mother and father had their child taken away by Child Protective Services, I think, in Indiana, supposedly because the parents wouldn't acknowledge the child's gender fluidity or gender identity.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk to the attorney from the Beckett Fund that is representing this family. We'll be back and talk to them after the break. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Some time ago, a friend of mine told a story. It was a story about two women who each went to the bank to borrow $1,000. Because the story so beautifully illustrates the extremes of human nature, I'd like to share it with you. The two ladies lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and it so happened that they both banked at the same bank. It was through coincidence and providence that the story came to light. The first lady went to the bank, and in the course of the discussion concerning the borrowing of that $1,000, the banker asked her what she wanted the money for. She explained to the banker that she had a wonderful opportunity. The dancing club that she was a member of was selling life memberships for only $1,000. She wished to borrow the money to become a life member of that club, and then for the rest of her life she could dance and dance and dance. Well, the second lady came to the banker and sought to borrow the same amount of money. Asked what she was planning on doing with the money, she told her situation. She said that she was a woman who worked for a very moderate salary and never had much money to command. She explained also that she was a member of a certain church in that city and that her church meant very much to her. Then she told the banker she'd always had a dream that someday she'd be able to give $1,000 to her church. She explained to the banker that her church was at a point where the money could be used to great advantage. She knew she'd never have $1,000 to give to her church, so she wanted to borrow that $1,000 and give it to her church now while it would do so much good. Two women, each wanting the same amount of money, but how far apart are the purposes for which they desired the money. Membership in a dancing club and furthering the work of the carpenter of men. You know, it's a story of life, a story of selfishness and love, competing with each other for control of the individual. A story of one who wished to borrow money to spend entirely on herself, and a story of one who wished to borrow money to spend entirely on others. Basically, most of us are a mixture of the two. We want to give away and we want to keep. This is the great struggle in the hearts of mankind. There's something in us urging us to wrap our hands around our money, and there's something in us urging us to give our money away for constructive purposes. In a few of us, there is proper balance, but in the most of us, the desire to keep prevails. The possessions we have are given to us only for a period. We don't own them. We can only use them. And while we can't take them with us, the way we use them now is an indication as to the place we will go when we're through using them.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Jeremiah 29:13.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
All right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for joining us. On AFR, Tim, Fred, Chris, and Ray. And I told you right before the break about a story out of the state of Indiana. And joining us right now is attorney with the Beckett Fund, Joe Davis. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
This is Tim Wildman. And where are you, sir?
We are based in Washington, D.C.
Okay. Tell us about your organization first, Beckett.
Sure, yeah, the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberties. So we are a nonprofit law firm that protects religious freedom for people of all faiths. We have an undefeated record at the U.S. Supreme Court.
What's the record?
You put me on the spot. It's a lot to zero.
Yeah, I can confirm that. Yeah,
a lot to zero, undefeated. I wanted to know, is it 1-0 or 20-0? Anyway, okay, go ahead.
Closer to the latter, yeah.
Okay. All right, so Joe, so for those who don't know anything about this case in Indiana, tell us what it's about.
Sure. I mean, this is really one of the most chilling incursions on religious liberty that you can imagine, even as somebody who's worked in this field for quite a while. A few years ago, back in 2021, the state of Indiana launched an investigation into two parents, Mary and Jeremy Cox, because they, informed by their Christian religious beliefs, declined to call their son by pronouns and a name that were contrary to his biological sex. The state then did the investigation and then took the child away, removed him from his parents' loving home, and then imposed a gag order on the parents that prevented them in their handful of visitation hours with their own child from discussing their beliefs about sex and gender. And this is really an extreme violation of Mary and Jeremy's rights as parents, as Americans. And so now they're asking the U.S. Supreme Court to protect them and protect other parents from facing this kind of situation.
Why is it the governor of Indiana or somebody who has authority in Indiana doing something about this?
It's a great question. I mean, Indiana of all places, right?
Yeah, it's a conservative. It's a red state. I mean, we were talking about the home of Mike Pence, for instance. So I don't understand. Is there more to the story than what you described?
It's truly let me address that. I mean, it really is unfortunate to see Indiana's leaders now at the Supreme Court, making excuses for the ideological things that their lower level bureaucrats obviously did here, right? This is the Department of Child Services that instituted all this, and they were the ones, that took the actions that were then fought about in the courts for a while. But now you do have the state of Indiana, its leaders coming in and making excuses, and they say, it wasn't really about the gender identity dispute. It was about other issues. But the record is absolutely clear that these were loving parents that were ready and willing to help their child address his mental health issues in every way. Except
what's the
identification?
Yeah, what's the okay? This couple, where do they live? They live where do they live in Indiana? I mean, what's their names?
Yeah, their names are Mary and Jeremy Cox. There's a lot about this case that is under seal, so I think we can leave it. We can leave it at that.
But what happened to their child? How old is their child, and where's their child now?
He is over 18 now. He's aged out of the system. So this removal ultimately, tragically became permanent.
But he's over 18. He can go visit them, or they vice versa if they want to right now, right?
That's right. But the point is that they removed this child when he was a teenager. Removed him permanently from the parents' home.
Yeah, I understand that. He's over 18 now, but the facts of the matter are what's dangerous here. And so let me understand this. Make sure I understand this right, and then you can tell us when the Supreme Court's going to hear this case. How long ago was this?
This is 2021.
So 2021, when their child, a male, was a minor, the Indiana Child Protection Service physically took the child from the home and put the child again, the minor, right, would have been 16 or 17 at the time, put them because the parents claim, and you're representing them, that the parents would not acknowledge that the child wanted to be called something other than his proper sex. Is that right?
That's correct.
Well, all right. I'm not advocating violence, but if that happened to me, there'd probably be a shootout. And now I'm just talking from the gut here. I don't advocate violence, but I think my feelings represent almost everybody listening right now. This is complete government tyranny. I mean, it's what this is. Not only, and it's a complete violation of your constitutional rights. So when is the court case? So it's made its way all the way to the Supreme Court, or did you guys jump ahead, or how did the court case go?
Yeah, that's right. So the lower courts in Indiana upheld this very egregious action, as you said, an egregious action. I mean, the state came in, they took the child out of his parents' home, and they put him in a home that would affirm his new gender identity. They said he had to be placed in a place where he would be, quote, accepted for who she is. So this really is about as egregious as it gets. The lower court said this was okay, and now the case is at the U.S. Supreme Court. and the parents are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to take the case and to reverse what the lower courts did.
Chris?
Hey, Joe, it's Chris here from AFN. One of the questions that we often ask you or Lori or whoever it is at Beckett or ADF, First Liberty, what have you, is this. Let's imagine somebody is in another part of the state or they're in another state and they think, well, that's unfortunate, but it doesn't impact me. Just to help put things in perspective for people, why should somebody in any part of the United States be concerned about paying attention to, this issue involving this couple in this state?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a dramatic precedent that would sign off on these kinds of things happening all over the country. I mean, if it can happen in Indiana, as I said before, it can happen anywhere. And in fact, there are other states, like on the West Coast, that have passed laws that actually encourage children, if they can't receive gender-affirming care at home, if their parents aren't on board with their gender transition, they can come to the state, and the state will help them out, and we'll keep that private from the parents. So this whole area is currently exploding, is likely to continue doing so, and that's why it's especially important for the U.S. Supreme Court to step in.
Joe, Fred Jackson here. Can you tell us who initiated the complaint with the Department of Child Services?
That is sealed. A lot about these kind of Department of Child Services cases are under seal. So that's part of the sealed record. There was an anonymous complaint to the Department of Child Services.
Ray, you got any questions for Joe before we let him go?
Joe, Ray Pritchard here. So this is now going to go to the Supreme Court, and we know that they get a lot more requests for review than they actually grant. In your judgment, what are the chances that this Supreme Court, with a good number of conservative justices, what are the chances they're going to actually take up this case and make a judgment on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always perilous to predict, but we're quite optimistic, like we are in many of the cases that we put up there in particular. But I mean, the court is very protective of religious liberty and has been willing to step in sort of these hot button issues before, and it's absolutely imperative that it do so.
This is more than religious liberty. This is parental rights. My goodness gracious! I mean, if Ed Vitagliano, my associate here, he uses the comparison of a girl who thinks she's fat, right, and when she's really anorexic, and so. Parents, if you got that kind of situation, parents don't affirm the anorexia. They don't say, "You're right, honey, you're fat. You're overweight. You need to lose weight." All the while they're killing themselves by starving themselves, right? You don't affirm that kind of self-destructive behavior. It's the same type thing here. You don't affirm a boy who's a minor living in your home. It's your child. You don't say, "Well, yeah, you're a girl." And then for the state to come in and say, if you don't call your son a girl, we're taking your kid away. Anyway, that's just terrible. And that's a mild word for this situation. Well, Joe, I'm sorry if I missed it. When will the case go before the Supreme Court?
So it's before the Supreme Court now for them to decide whether or not to hear the case, and we expect to hear an answer on that by this spring. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much.
It's Joe Davis, attorney with the Beckett Fund.
Listen, this is a story that's part of a much bigger story that's going on in our country right now, is to cut parents out. We have school districts that are advocating that parents not be told about what's going on at their school. A kid goes to a school counselor, and you have school districts now saying, we don't have to tell the mom and dad what's going on at school. So it's part of a much bigger problem that is just exploding across this country.
That's also why elections like school board, for example, matter. Huh?
Yes.
And state legislatures matter.
Yes.
I know a lot of politics, Ray, we just think in terms of who the president is.
Right.
Or maybe a Senate race or something like that. Mm-hmm. And yes, those are critically important. But so many decisions are made at the city council, the county commissioner, a state legislature, who the governor is, who the DA is, all those kind of things. Go ahead.
Well, look, don't say to yourself, this could never happen where we live. If
Right.
it could happen in Indiana, basically a red
Yes.
state, guarantee you it's already happening in places like California, New York, in the blue areas of the country. So just because you live in a deep red area, it doesn't mean this couldn't happen. So Tim, to your point, who we put on the school boards locally and statewide matters hugely. And as a matter of fact, who we put in as Attorney General and Governor matters a great deal too. So
Yeah, exactly.
this could happen anywhere.
You know, the other day, Chris helped me. We were having a story that we discussed, and we may have discussed it on the air. To Ray's point, there was a school district in Arizona, I think. It was a big school district, maybe the largest, and it was discovered that they were keeping a chart on parents, whether they affirmed their kid who claimed to be a transgendered, and they were. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know if that came out in a court case or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is going on.
Yes.
This
It
is
is.
going on.
It is, and you know, as we pointed out, don't think it's just California, and don't think it's New York.
Right.
This is happening in various states. It is happening primarily through the education system in many of these jurisdictions. These people believe that the school district, their officials know better than the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It was. It may have been Colorado. I pulled
Was
up
it
a
Colorado instead of Arizona?
Yeah, it was
The
from
school
a few
district
days
up there?
ago.
Okay.
Should K through 12 schools in Colorado be required to use students' chosen names on unofficial documents such as rosters and student
No,
IDs?
that's not the story I'm talking about,
Okay.
but that's relative.
Yeah, without a legal name change or parental notification.
Yeah, Steve Jordahl, I think Steve had that story last week. We'll ask him about it because he was familiar with the county. Maybe it is Colorado, but anyway, this sounds almost impossible. What Joe Davis was describing.
Yeah.
Especially in a red state for this to happen. All right, you're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. Next story.
Well, here's a positive story about what can
We
happen.
need a positive story, Chris.
You know, I try to be the K-Love guy every once in a while.
Yeah.
Positive and encouraging Chris Woodward. Okay. This is a positive story involving what happens when you lawyer up and you go to court with a group like Beckett or First Liberty, ADF, what have you. It's a story about Dr. Johnson Varkey. Some listeners may recognize his name, Dr. Johnson Varkey. He's a guy that we've covered for a couple of years now on AFN.net radio and print coverage. Dr. Varkey is a biology professor at a college called St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas. He's a biology professor teaching things involving biology.
Okay.
Now, he's also an associate pastor on the side, but in the classroom he teaches biology because that's his day job.
At what school?
At St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
Small public school there in San Antonio. Well, he was fired because he was teaching biology in the biology class. Now, the positive story is through getting assistance from First Liberty Institute, they've been able to get him back in the classroom by this fall. But here is his attorney, Kayla Turney, recalling the story of Dr. Johnson Varkey and what happened there at St. Philip's College, clip 4.
He has taught human anatomy at St. Philip's College, which is a public community college, for the past 20 years. He taught over 1,500 students, never had any issues or complaints, received great performance reviews every year. And one day, a handful of students walked out of his class when he taught that sex is defined by the chromosome X and Y. They found that offensive and walked out. And within about 6 weeks, he received a letter from his school saying that they had filed a complaint against him, that there was an investigation going on, even though they never spoke to him about it. And then before he knew it, he had been fired.
Now, that again was Kayla Turney, an attorney at First Liberty, talking about the firing of Dr. Johnson Varkey. The update here is that through First Liberty's help here, they wrote some letters to the school. The school didn't back down, so they went to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, got some help from there, and Dr. Johnson Varkey is going to be back in the classroom teaching biology to biology students by this fall.
My university degree is in biology, and biology and chemistry. Going back to high school through university, there was never any debate that sex is determined by, you get two X's together, it's going to be a girl. You get an XY together.
Chromosomes you're talking about.
Chromosomes, it's going to be a boy. That is the science. Three or four kids were upset in Dr. Varkey's class, were upset because he taught science. He taught reality. And they said, your reality, this biological reality, doesn't line up with how I feel. So we're going to walk out of your class. They go to the university officials, and they fire this guy. This is insanity.
He needs to sue him. He needs to sue him for monetary damages.
This is what happens when you teach kids and you say things to them like my truth.
Yeah.
Because you're going to believe whatever you want.
All right, Ray, I want to talk about this from a biblical perspective for just a moment. This whole movement, especially the transgendered movement, what is going on? Why is the culture in general rebelling against what God?
Why has the culture become so revolting?
Well, that too. But what is going on here, spiritually speaking? Here,
the New Testament uses this phrase: the darkened heart and the darkened mind. It's the mind. It's the mind and it's the heart and it's the moral center cut loose from any morality, from any standards of truth. It's where the human mind and the human heart ends up. It's the end of the road when you rebel against the God who made you. And, as Fred said, back in the day, this couldn't happen, right? You couldn't have a biology teacher fired for teaching biology, stuff that is non-controversial and true. But when you have a young generation, and part of it, Chris, is what you said, the My Truth generation, that feeds into the idea that I can invent truth, but you invent truth at your own peril, because truth is determined by the God who made us, who created the universe around us. And I think it was John Calvin. No, I know it was John Calvin who said the human heart is an idol factory. When the heart is darkened, you set up an idol of your own desires. I am whatever I think I am. I know I was a boy made this way, but now I feel like I'm a girl, and you make an idol of your own desires. It's the darkened heart writ large across our society. It's a massive rebellion against God and the truth of God.
Yeah, exactly. It's really interesting that they are attacking this science. I've yet to hear somebody attack the science of gravity. Go ahead, kid, and tell me gravity doesn't exist. I'll take you up to 30,000 feet in an airplane and open the door. Do you still believe gravity doesn't exist? If you do, jump out and see what happens. And you say, well, that's insane. Well, what's happening in our system is insane.
Yeah.
We are rejecting scientific fact.
Yeah. The part, too, that if somebody wants to say, I was born a male, but I feel like a girl. I feel like a female. Okay. I understand. I've never experienced that, but I can understand what you're saying to me. Okay. But if you're born a male and you say, but I'm not a male, I am a girl, I am a female, that's insanity. Mm-hmm. That's certifiable. You go to the loony bin a few years ago for saying if you went around acting like that. Mm-hmm. So, but you see the distinguishment, what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
But what they're wanting, this is beyond a man who says he feels like he's a woman. This is somebody who says, no, I don't feel like I'm a woman. I am a woman. And you're supposed to, therefore, put me in women's sports, for example.
Yeah.
Did you see up in, was it Connecticut a couple of days ago? They had a high school basketball game.
Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Same part of the country.
Massachusetts, yeah.
It's like Mississippi and Alabama. Yeah.
No, it ain't.
Well,
but anyway.
No, I meant together. They're in the same region is what I meant. Yeah.
I have to take offense to that.
Yeah. Regionally, they are the same. Okay.
No, it starts with an M, but it's not the same. and they can. Anyway, better stop right there. We do have a few supporters in Massachusetts.
God bless them.
God bless them, and
Yes, God bless them.
yes, and if they can live in that blue lunacy, I say you go for it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, in Massachusetts, a couple of days ago, it made some news outlets.
Mm-hmm.
They're having a high school basketball game, and it was two girls teams playing each other. One of them had a dude who said he was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets to play on the girls' basketball team. He injured 3 girls so bad, they had to call the game off.
Yeah.
They had to call the game off. This guy would look like to me, he was like 6'4", 220 pounds, or I don't know how big he is. He's and he's going up against these young ladies,
girls.
high school girls,
Yeah.
and injured 3 of them in one half, I think, under the basket or something like that. Anyway, and they had to suspend the ball game, and in fact the other team said, we're not playing.
Yeah,
we're not going to do
they
this.
forfeited the game.
Forfeited the game
to protect their girls.
Yeah, and I'll tell you how far this goes. This lunacy is what I call it. We have remember when what's her name? Supreme Court Justice Jackson. What's her first name?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Okay, remember she was testifying.
Yes.
Before the Senate. Remember this?
Mm-hmm.
A couple years back.
Yep.
And was it Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee?
It was.
Yeah, Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, senator, said, can you tell us what a woman is? And her answer, now she's the Supreme Court justice now. Her answer before the world was, I don't know, I'm not a biologist. Huh?
Yeah.
And
That's what she said, yeah.
She knows what a woman is, but she doesn't want to say it because she doesn't want to offend the transgendered
exactly,
and those who sympathize with them. And I just thought she got away with that.
If you want to know what insanity is, it's not really her answer. It's moral and cultural insanity to put a woman like that on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Bingo.
Now,
Bingo.
Mind you, Biden promised he was going to put, in his words, a woman on the Supreme Court, specifically a black woman on the Supreme Court. So they made a big deal out about her gender, and then when she gets put on the stand on the hot seat, she can't answer a question about gender.
That's a good point. I wonder if they'd have said, Judge Jackson, do you know what an African American is? I wonder if she'd have said, I don't know, I'm not a biologist. No. She would have said, huh? She wouldn't have said that. She wouldn't have said that. It's only this issue where they pretend like they don't know stuff, or pretend like they, otherwise intelligent people act like this.
Was it the same hearing? The question was asked of one of these candidates, judicial candidates, can a man have a baby?
May have been.
And they refused to answer that. Can a man have a baby?
Yeah, and wouldn't even answer that.
And they wouldn't answer that.
Wouldn't answer that. I wanted Marsha Blackburn to follow up with this question for the Judge Jackson there, who's now Justice Jackson. Do you know what a tornado is? And she looked at her, and if she'd have been consistent, she said, no, I don't. I'm not a meteorologist. Yeah. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know what a tornado is. Anyway, what we're pointing out here is the idiocy, the lunacy, the craziness, the insanity of this movement, this transgendered movement that's going on out there, to the point where in some cases children are being taken out of their home.
Yeah.
In the state of Arizona, state of Indiana, because they identify one way or another, and the parents won't acknowledge that, at least not to the satisfaction of the child protection service.
And our girls are being injured.
Yes, absolutely. And there are some people who are pushing for boys to be allowed to compete against girls in the Olympics. Yes. I don't think the Olympic Committee has agreed to that, but there's a push for that.
Some sports bodies have, yeah.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on American Family Radio. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
At one time, there was one express way to get urgent information. Aren't you glad for modern technology? Today, AFA Action Alerts can reach you in seconds with up-to-the-minute information that allows you to take action. These days, seconds can mean the difference between keeping our families safe or losing precious Christian freedoms. Sign up for Action Alerts today at afaaction.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds is calling on Congress to increase security at the southern border while speaking at the annual Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington.
My position to my colleagues on Capitol Hill is clear. You either secure the border or you get no money for the government.
Border funding has been stalled in Congress after the Senate passed billions of dollars in foreign aid without changes to border policy. The White House plans on forgiving over $1 billion in student loan debt. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem weighed in on Fox and Friends.
He's buying votes. That's exactly what he's doing. The timing of this to follow through on what he has threatened to do for so long is incredibly hypocritical of him to say that he cares about this country and continue to accumulate debt and hand out money to get himself reelected.
As former President Trump appeals his New York fraud case, his lawyers are weighing in on the possibility of bringing the case to the Supreme Court. Trump attorney Alina Habba.
There is a long-haul plan, and that may include the Supreme Court. As you've seen, President Trump is not afraid to take matters to the Supreme Court, especially the matters that protect the Constitution, our rights as Americans to vote for who we want to vote for.
In Seattle, the radical Marxist left is teaching black high schoolers that if they love reading and writing, that's a sign of white supremacy. Bob Kellogg has more.
During Black Lives Matter in Education Week at Seattle's Lincoln High School, flyers listing the 9 characteristics of white supremacy were handed out, including worship of the written word. Christian culture analyst Janice Krause says that's detrimental to children.
I think it's so hurtful to black children and the whole black culture to have anybody holding those views and trying to promote them amongst black children and in the black culture.
In general, Krause believes that most black parents would not favor having the education system keep their children from learning to proficiently read and write.
I just have a hard time accepting that any parent or any teacher or anybody with any kind of common sense at all would wish that on any child in America.
BizPackReview.com also says the promoters of racism told Lincoln High School students that objectivity, individualism, and perfectionism were other signs of white supremacy. I'm Bob Kellogg.
Pro-life groups in Kansas want the father of a preborn child to ante up. Charlie Butts explains.
The Kansas Supreme Court forced abortion up to birth on the state by declaring it to be a constitutional right. So pro-life groups such as Kansans for Life has been concentrating on getting bills passed to help pregnant women carry their babies to term. KFL spokeswoman Jean Godden tells AFN,
one of the things that we thought would be helpful to a woman who is pregnant would be to encourage the courts to look at some of the expenses that a pregnant woman has, take those expenses into account in determining how much child support the father of that child may be required to pay.
There are 9 factors the courts must consider, so the bill would add one more.
And it simply adds up to 40 weeks to the time child support may be awarded to the mother. The father may be paying child support for 18 years. So this just goes back to those first 40 weeks when that child is in the womb.
There are expenses directly related to the pregnancy, including doctor visits, tests, and birth in a hospital. The bill is in the committee stage, and Kansans for Life believes it'll help a woman if she wants to have the baby rather than to feel forced by her circumstances to have an abortion.
A lot of people noticed their phones weren't working this morning. Jerry Willis explains what happened.
As of 6:32 a.m., 35,065 people experiencing
outages. Local reports saying AT&T is now coming back online. Good news, saying this is the second major outage within a week. Users also report more than 800 outages for Verizon and T-Mobile users, so everybody impacted here. A Verizon spokesperson telling Fox Business the cellular issue was only when Verizon users tried to call people with AT&T. Still unclear what is causing the problem.
For American Valley News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Real-life heroes don't look like the ones in the movies. Mark Nichols doesn't wear a cape. He's a business owner in a small Arkansas town who took a stand when his local library opened their children's section to the radical LGBTQ agenda. When you give today to AFA Action, you're helping to protect the innocence of children. We'll also give you a free copy of Mark's story. It's the latest DVD in our Impact series. Visit afaaction.net today. afaaction.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Some people's cell phone service is coming back. A few people that we've heard from. I'm Tim Wildman, Fred Jackson, Ray Pritchard. Joining us in studios now is Steve, Piano Man. No, Paisley.
Yeah, I think Billy Joel's got that one wrapped up.
Steve Jordahl. You got a different kind of shirt on today. You got
Yeah, it's a music shirt.
A music shirt.
Yeah.
It's got a piano on one side. What's it got on the other side?
It's got a staff and a treble clef side and some notes.
Are those music notes?
They are. It's a 16th note, 8th note.
I know what music notes are from my 2.5 years of cello.
There you go.
I know why he's wearing that shirt today.
Why was that?
He's going to Nashville.
I am going to Nashville this afternoon.
Yeah. So at Music City.
Oh, Music City.
Yeah.
Nice.
He wants to fit in.
Are you gonna? What are you gonna be? You got a band? Or are you gonna be playing? What are you doing? What are you doing in Nashville?
My wife is a speech pathologist, and she's taking some continuing education courses at Vanderbilt. So we're going up, and I'm going to be visiting my dad. And
Ray, you been to Nashville much? Have you?
Yeah, but not in the last 10 years or so. Great city.
It is.
Some of our teams up there right now at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. That's where Ed is.
Yeah, big night tonight there.
So he says.
So he says.
I mean, you never know about Ed. He says he's somewhere else, and next thing you know, find him in the casino.
Really?
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, it happens.
It happens.
How did I end up here?
Well, there's no windows, Ed. You need to go home now. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But Ed and Walker, some of our bunch have been up there at the NRB in Nashville. But so you got to go downtown. That's where all the action is, isn't it? All the
I tell you,
all the good restaurants and everything.
I don't know what's the street that goes downtown.
Broadway.
Broadway.
It is amazing. It's. I love going up and down Broadway. There's a lot of bars, a lot of stuff at night you probably don't want to avoid, but there's music in every window. There's all kinds of food. It's just great. In the Ryman Auditorium, the old place that used to be the Grand Ole Opry, one end, and they've got a B.B. King's Blues Bar. I think it's back open on the other end.
But you left out the most important thing,
which is
it's where the Nashville Predators play.
Yeah, right
That's
in
where the
the middle.
is.
In the middle,
the NHL team, right
in the
downtown,
middle.
right?
Come on,
okay.
Yeah, so
that is a pretty cool shirt, though.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, any updates, Steve, that you know of regarding the national outages of cell phones?
I've just been hearing what Fred is talking about. I think it's slowly coming back. What I have seen is some people are saying that they're pinning this on a solar flare. But I don't know. And I saw a report that it's not just AT&T phones, although my phone's been working fine the whole time. So I don't know.
It's more than AT&T, but AT&T is the most affected. Verizon, T-Mobile.
I don't know what
but it's just as strange. We don't know why yet. Some people saying it's software. Other people saying it's solar.
A solar flare would.
But a solar flare, why would that just hit the U.S.?
Yeah, right.
Huh? Oh,
God hates the U.S. and
they hacked the sun.
hates AT&T.
They hacked the sun somehow.
We
don't know how they did it, but they did it.
How did the Chinese do it?
How did they do it?
They hacked the sun.
You know, I think I brought a story in a couple of weeks ago about people, the climate alarmists, were going to go put a big, huge parasol out in space to block the sun. About 2% of the sun's. That's supposed to.
Have you seen these people?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
They glue themselves to streets, so I'm not sure how they're going to launch it.
Yeah, they're not going to.
We have some questions.
They're not going to be able to pull that one off.
We do indeed.
I don't think if that's for up to the climate activists who are going after the Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for joining us here on the American Family Radio Network. If you want to check us out, we're at AFR.net. We live audio stream there, AFR.net, AFR.net. We have our live video streaming service. You can go here to watch the show if you want to, streaming.afa.net, streaming.afa.net. We also have a Facebook page where we post the stories that we talk about. It's easy and convenient for us to do that. We've been doing that for a long, long time. Facebook, just type in today's issues. We also have a YouTube. We're back on YouTube. Brent, what's our YouTube?
They can go to YouTube and search for today's issues, AFA streaming, and it'll pull up.
Okay. So check that out. All right, Steve, what's your first story?
Well, guess what?
What?
It's 2024. We got an election coming up in November, and all of a sudden, President Joe Biden is very concerned about the border. And he's going to do some things. He's got some executive orders up his sleeve that is going to solve the problem. And so vote for him because that's what he's, good at.
We had some executive orders from the previous president that were working fine, but Biden pulled them all day one.
Come on, Tim.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, well, similar stuff.
He's going to put Trump's. Is he going to put President Trump?
Some of them are similar to President Trump. You'll never hear them say that. Trump was the evil man that they had to undo. But here's what they're planning. A new string of listen to this. A new string of executive orders.
Does Biden know this? Does he know he's planning this?
He might be being told right now. Executive actions and federal regulations. Remember yesterday we said that sometimes they change laws and affect your life through regulations?
Yeah.
This is kind of one of them. So they're discussing using the section of the Immigration and Nationality Act to bar immigrants from seeking asylum in between ports of entry. Meaning, if you want asylum, you got to go to the gate and the port of entry. Now, that's every illegal entry to the United States. They say they're going to stop, but they're going to, of course, they're going to put a trigger in this. You have to allow 500 illegals to cross before they set this trigger up.
Why?
They really don't want to stop it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And the second thing that they're talking about is make it harder for migrants to pass the initial screening for asylum, to raise the credible fear standard.
Now, what did you say about asylum? What did they say anything in there about asylum? Because that's the problem.
Yeah. They are going to make it harder for migrants to pass their initial screening for asylum. In other words, you have to come here and say, I'm requesting
I think you need to
asylum
suspend it. You need to absolutely suspend it for 1 year till we get a handle on this. That's the problem. That's one of the main problems is these folks come here illegally, crossing our southern border, and then they claim asylum, and then by law, you're supposed to say, well, I don't know if it's by law or not, but nevertheless, they turn them loose into the interior of the country, telling them to come back for their asylum hearing down the road, sometimes many years later.
Yeah.
Well, they're not coming back.
Right.
Okay. So, and also these folks asylum is a good thing. It's a good-hearted, putting in common man's language, but it's a way for America to be welcoming to people who are being persecuted for the religious reasons, or they're part of somewhere where they're doing ethnic cleansing. We have asylum for political prisoners.
Yeah.
For people so we have. This is separate from the normal immigration process. Okay.
That's correct.
So all these folks from around the world are pleading. They're either walking in and nobody's asking them anything and they're on to their destination, or they're pleading asylum and turned loose into the interior of the country.
Yeah, under Joe Biden, all they have to do is utter the word asylum.
Right.
All right? That's all they have to do. Here's what's happening. Alejandro Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, under oath, has said over the last 2 years the border is secure. Everybody knows that. But now what's happening is the vast majority of America now understands that's not true. Our border is not secure. There have been developments just in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The number of Chinese nationals coming into this country has exploded since October. I heard a story the other day. This is one of these Chinese nationals. He says they flew from Beijing to Turkey, from Turkey to Tijuana. They are coming up to the border now, well-dressed, like they stayed in a nice hotel in Tijuana, well-dressed.
Got the backpacks.
No, suitcase.
Oh, suitcase.
Nice suitcase.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a nice hotel in
You know,
Tijuana. I hate to break it to you.
they just walk in through a hole in the border, say asylum, and they're in.
Yeah. Yeah, and the asylum is also, you're supposed to claim asylum in the first country you get to.
Yeah.
That's not...
Where you're not under threat anymore.
Right. So...
Go to the embassy.
Mexico's just like a connecting airport.
Yeah.
For the world, basically, right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Mexico's not helping us at all.
Nope.
So...
The bottom line is Joe Biden thinks he has to do something about the border.
Because of political reasons. In other words, this issue, more than any other issue, perhaps you could argue inflation, but is set to hurt the Democrats in November, big time. And so they're trying to do something publicly, window dressing, to try to thwart those,
Also, what has happened, of course, we know that tens of thousands of these illegals have arrived in New York, have arrived in Chicago, and the locals who normally vote Democrat are saying, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You guys are putting these guys up in hotels, you're feeding them, they're getting free medical care.
No wonder they still come. You've incentivized it.
Yes.
Right?
New York City was talking about giving them $10,000 each in a debit card.
Okay. My head's about to come off my shoulders.
Okay.
I need to. Can we?
Do you want to go on?
Yeah, next story.
All right. So we've talked sometimes about people who change their gender right before they go into prison, so they can go into men who want to go into the women's prison. Sometimes they change their gender to go to the women's prison. Sometimes they're really genuinely sexually confused. But a lot of states have started making accommodations for them, saying if you identify as a woman, we'll put you in a women's prison.
What man wouldn't want to do that?
I mean,
huh?
Right? Well, especially if you're the type that commits a lot of crimes. So the Independent Women's Forum has put together a movie. It's actually a series that's going to start coming out at the end of the month. But I've got part of the trailer that they put out.
This is a growing problem. Seriously, I was cracking a joke there, but this is a serious issue.
Yeah.
This is a growing problem.
Several states
where men are saying they're convicted of a crime, and then all of a sudden they identify as a woman, so they can go to the women's.
That's right.
Prison.
The movie is called Cruel and Unusual Punishment: The Male Takeover of Female Prisons, and I want you to listen to a little bit of the trailer cut 6.
California has passed legislation allowing transgender inmates in the state's correctional facilities to be assigned housing based on their gender identity.
We were very nervous, angry. We weren't given a voice.
No one asked us how we felt about this. No one did.
In September, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 132 into law.
We're getting the predators, the sexual predators, people who have been incarcerated for rape, men who have been incarcerated for crimes against women.
California now joins Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York City, and Massachusetts in recognizing inmates' gender identity.
They were like kids in a candy store because they knew they were going from a men's prison to a female's prison. And if you're purposely putting a predator amongst prey, so to say, I don't got to tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What documentary was that from?
It's called The Cruel and Unusual Punishment: The Male Takeover of Female Prisons.
What do they do? Is this going on across the country, or where is that happening?
They just listed in that trailer where this is happening across California, no surprise. New York, no surprise. Basically, the list was Democrat-run areas.
Blue states.
Blue states. This is where it's happening. There's got to be lawsuits.
I wish we could separate easily, Ray. You still there, Ray?
I'm right here. You know, you think about this. It's beyond outrageous. You asked me in the last segment, you know, how do you describe this society? This is what moral darkness is. This is what happens. This is not just immoral to do this and foolish and dangerous and idiotic. This is moral insanity.
Yeah.
This is an inversion.
But doesn't Romans 1 in the Bible say that at some point God will turn you over to a reprobate mind?
Well, that's what he's done. That's people say God is going to judge America. Oh no, my friends. If you want to see a nation under God's judgment, look at America today. This story, Steve, this little clip you play, the impossible 50, 60, 70 years ago.
Right.
10 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been happening.
Yeah. So no, this is Romans 1. God gives you over to a reprobate, darkened mind, and you have insanity like this.
All right. You got anything good in that stack over there? Good news to share, Steve?
I don't know if it's good news for the Secret Service, but boy, President Biden is having a hard time controlling his dog.
Yeah, talk about the dog story there.
There was a dog. President Biden likes German Shepherds. He had one for a long time that just passed away. Major was his name. A Champ actually was.
Major was his name.
So they've sent now Major and now Commander. They've sent them away from the White House. Okay, Commander is involved in at least 24 incidents of biting Secret Service agents and staff. The Secret Service had to change their protocols around this dog.
Yeah, I would say I don't know how he got out, sir. We'll try to find him.
The Bidens were apologizing.
That would be what I would tell the president.
Yeah, we're all over it, sir.
Yeah.
We're searching.
I don't know what happened. He jumped the fence, I guess.
Yeah, right.
He's not here any longer.
Somebody jumped the hedge.
Right.
We don't know.
So, okay, he had a dog, Joe Biden. When he came into the White House, do you know the history here?
Yeah, when he came into the White House,
there was a German Shepherd named.
He had a German Shepherd named Champ, who had been at Biden's side since he was vice president, died at the age of 13. Then he had 3-year-old Major, who was sent away after he bit 2 people, and now Champ, 24.
And Major had major behavioral problems,
discipline problems.
Right.
Let me listen. This is what they're saying. At the time, the White House sources made the assertion that Commander targets members of the president's security details because of their unfriendly expressions.
Well, we're not paying those men and women to smile, right?
Hey, if this is a Chihuahua, maybe this is a funny little cute story.
Right.
A German Shepherd will take half your leg off.
They can. They're police dogs.
Yeah, I mean that's
serious.
That's not funny. You get attacked by a German Shepherd. So what happened to the dog now?
They've sent it off to live with family in Delaware.
What he doesn't love his own family now. He's turning his dog on his own.
That sounds like something from my high school years when a girl got pregnant. They sent her off. She went to live with her aunt in Memphis.
Right.
Wow.
Can you imagine for a moment what news agency is putting this story out?
This is from the Daily Mail.
All right. Can you imagine if this was Donald Trump still in the White House and it was his dog doing this?
Right.
Networks would be all over this.
Oh, yeah.
That Trump is displaying his behavior, his callous behavior for authority.
Right.
Because he's got this dog who's biting these dear Secret Service agents.
Right.
Nothing anywhere else. It is amazing how they keep Joe Biden in the closet when it comes to these kinds of stories. He's
the media, the mainstream media.
The mainstream media.
Yeah,
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
What's going on here. And the fact that this is dog number 3.
Yeah. Well, the first one, they don't accuse of biting.
Okay. Isn't
number
that nice?
2 and 3.
Yeah, he was too old.
Right.
He was too old. But now you got 2 German Shepherds. Joe Biden shouldn't be allowed any dogs in that White House from now on.
Sounds like to me they're just German Shepherds just roaming the grounds.
Yeah, biting who they choose.
Huh?
Biting who they choose.
Biting who they choose. All right, Steve. Next, got any other stories there? Because we got 7 minutes.
Yeah.
We don't have a piano for you to play.
No, that's right. You wouldn't want. You could hear me sing, but you don't want to hear me play the piano. So let's talk about who's on the short list for vice president if Trump gets the nomination. He's sent out a list, and one candidate on that list says, "No, I'm not interested," which I can understand. I'm kind of having a hard time understanding why anybody would be interested, but Ron DeSantis on Wednesday, said he would not consider being Donald Trump's running mate if he was asked, because Donald Trump put out a list, and on his list was DeSantis, Tulsi Gabbard, Tim Scott, Byron Donalds, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Kristi Noem.
Okay. So what happened there was, excuse me, is Governor DeSantis of Florida was on a private call to a lot of his supporters.
Mm-hmm.
That was the story. And so what he said in response to a question, would you be interested in being Donald Trump's running mate? That's what he was responding to. It was a private call where you got to know, it probably get out in the public, so it wasn't. But he said, Governor DeSantis said, quote, "I'm not doing that," end quote.
Basically channeling President Johnson, who says, if asked, I will not serve. I'm not going to run for election, and if asked, I will not serve.
Right. Well, it was President Trump who brought up DeSantis' name a couple of days ago,
and these other
candidates.
It's completely unbelievable to me that there's any universe in which Ron DeSantis, after all that has happened, would agree to be Mr. Trump's running mate.
I agree. There's multiple reasons why I don't think that would be a possibility. And Governor DeSantis yesterday said, quote, "I'm not doing that," end of quote. I think I said yesterday, you got two polar personalities right there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know about polar personalities, but way of behaving and governing that are incompatible, seems to me. You have Trump. Trump is out there, motor mouth.
Yeah.
And DeSantis is, motor mouth for good and bad.
Yeah.
And DeSantis is more disciplined.
Yeah.
And more reserved. So I don't know if they would.
I do find it difficult that Trump did include Tulsi Gabbard in that.
A lifelong Democrat.
Lifelong Democrat from Hawaii who has been very critical now of her former party.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting because back 2-3 weeks ago, she was asked if she would accept. And she says, "I'm willing to do anything to serve my country."
Yeah. She's a former congresswoman from Hawaii who is a lifelong Democrat, but she's been converted to being a conservative in the last 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
With the exception of DeSantis, what do all of these people have in common? Gabbard, Scott, Donalds, Ramaswamy, and Noem.
What do they have in common?
They're all either women, black, or members of a diversity class. There's people that are talking about Donald Trump using identity politics to choose his vice president.
Yeah, I don't know about it. I don't believe that.
Well, look at the list.
Yeah. Well, I know, but
that might be why.
But he had
Tulsi Gabbard gets the list.
Yeah. Tell me when I can. So I don't want to talk over you here.
Go ahead.
Because I don't do that.
No.
I don't talk over people.
No.
Right?
Tag, you're it.
Okay. So he had Pence as his VP for 4 years. Okay. So he was former governor of Indiana, but white male. So I don't think Trump's into diversity hires myself. But
It's the second term.
I think he's going to pick a female.
Yeah.
As a running mate.
Why?
I just think he's a good businessman. He understands where the weakness is. The weakness is right now suburban women.
You think?
Yeah.
Huh.
He needs somebody to talk to suburban women.
Okay. Well, what about bird brain?
Not happening.
That's not happening.
Not happening.
No. I'll bet on DeSantis before Nikki Haley.
Yeah, that's right.
Listen, I'm not calling her bird brain, Nikki Haley. That's what Donald Trump calls her, bird brain. And my reference there is, I don't think that's a way to win over women's votes.
No.
Is by referring to Nikki Haley as a bird brain. But Hey, in the world of politics, as they say, stranger things have happened, right?
Yeah.
But so we don't know. It probably won't be DeSantis. Well, he says it won't be DeSantis, and it won't be Nikki Haley. So, question remains: Who will be the VP's choice of Donald Trump? We'll find out probably in the next few days, I would guess, maybe. We'll see you tomorrow. Trivia Friday tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. Well, on Friday, on our Spiritual Heritage Tour of Washington, D.C., we go to the Arlington National Cemetery, where we see the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.